Welcome. My name is Bill Rothwell, and I'd like to speak with you for a few minutes about the topic of social change. Why that topic? Well, in recent years, businesses and other organizations have been challenged as never before. And it started in the era of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Many organizational leaders were challenged to rethink how they dealt with people in their organizations. And research has shown that diverse worker populations are more creative than those that are homogeneous. At the same time, diverse populations are also more likely to assume risks. We know risks are important for entrepreneurship. Any good entrepreneur has to take risks to make money. And consequently, there is a strong amount of risk in any entrepreneurial behavior. That's something that is difficult to sustain. That risk proclivity is difficult to sustain in large organizations that tend to become very bureaucratic over time. The opposite of entrepreneurship, of course, is bureaucracy, where you have to get approval to do anything. And that wears people down and discourages them from doing anything innovative. But if you have a diverse population, diversity includes more than race or gender. It includes diversity in all ways, including value systems, mindsets, beliefs, attitudes, and so forth. So historically, as organizations started to launch internal diversity programs, it became apparent that diversity efforts really involved corporate culture change. And I've spoken to many corporate executives, and when I ask them, what are you trying to accomplish in your organization? More times than not, they will say that they seek corporate culture change. And when I hear that, I sometimes am a little confused because culture change is a result of shared experience of people. So, in order to create a culture change, you must give people a new experience. If that experience is a good one, people remember it and want to do more of it. If it is a bad experience, then they believe that that is not a behavior or activity that they want to engage in. So diversity efforts have been very successful in many organizations in encouraging people to focus on new thinking and involving new people. But, it's difficult to sustain diversity efforts as corporate culture change efforts inside an organization if the surrounding community and the surrounding national culture outside of that organization is filled with people who do not support diverse thinking. And that leads us to the view that maybe we should not just focus our efforts internally inside the company on diversity efforts, but maybe we should also be directing those culture change efforts externally outside of the organization. And when we talk about that, we're talking about more than the traditional concept of corporate social responsibility, CSR. CSR is a great concept, The problem with it is that too often organizational leaders think that they can bring about uh, some level of effort simply by donating money to worthy causes. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't donate money to worthy causes. You should. But is that going enough? What is the role of the organization, whether it's a business, a government entity, or a nonprofit, in maintaining a society that values people regardless of their race, their gender, and all of the other things that have little to do with their worth as individuals? And so consequently, we have to consider the issue of what is the role of the organization, whether business, government, or nonprofit, in enacting social change. So I'm a professional in the field of organization development, but OD has traditionally focused on change efforts inside organizations, like the implementation of a diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility program. But do they go far enough? Does diversity go far enough? Maybe we need to be thinking about social change. And when we do that, the appropriate word is trans organization development, which means change across organizational settings. And that's really what we're talking about when we are talking about social change. We're talking about trying to make the world a better place. Seriously, that's what we're trying to accomplish. So some business leaders would say that that's really not the scope of a business to focus on the community or the nation as a whole, but instead the purpose of business is to make money. And the purpose of a nonprofit is to serve the cause that it was established to serve. And a governmental entity is meant to carry out the enacting legislation that created the agency, the government agency. But is that as far as it goes? If a government agency, if a nonprofit, or if a business is in a society that does not treat people the right way, is that really going to lead to the long-term success of the organization? I don't think so. What I'd like you to think about is what is the role of business, government, and nonprofits in creating a better world? Is it enough for a business to just seek profits? Is that all that's important? And regardless of what happens in the rest of the world, is that all that the business should focus on? The same is true with a government entity or a nonprofit. Should they single-mindedly focus on the purpose of their organization, or should they also adopt a insightful view of how to make the world a better place and thereby make their organizations true contributors to a better world?